The 2026 FIFA World Cup didn't just add 16 more teams, it rebuilt the tournament from the ground up. Here's the path we'll take. First, how the new format is actually built. Then two contrasting sections, where expansion helped competitive balance and where it hurt it. After that, we'll cover the commercial engine behind the decision, the political fallout, how results have actually unfolded on the field, and finally a synthesis that pulls all of it together. Let's start with the architecture, because before we can judge whether this format is fair, we need to understand exactly how it works. 48 national teams, up from 32. 12 groups of 4, labeled A through L, 104 total matches, up from 64 in 2022. And it all plays out over 39 days, June 11th through July 19th, across 16 venues in 3 host nations. This is the biggest structural overhaul in the tournament's history, and it arrived after just one cycle at 32 teams. Side by side with the old format, the differences are stark. Groups stayed at 4 teams, but there are now 12 of them instead of 8. Total matches jumped 62.5%, and the share of the field that advances went from an even 50% to 2/3. Critically, the first knockout round used to be the round of 16. Now there's a brand new round of 32 in front of it, adding an 8th match to a champion's path and 10 extra days to the calendar. It's worth remembering what almost happened instead. FIFA's original 2023 plan was 16 groups of 3 teams, not 4. But that format has a serious flaw. In the final round, one team sits out while the other 2 play, creating a scenario where a specific scoreline benefits both remaining sides. The kind of risk football fans call the disgrace of Guyane after the infamous 1982 match. Public backlash over that risk is exactly why FIFA reversed course and kept full 4-team round-robin groups. The first path to the knockouts is simple. The winner and runner-up of each of the 12 groups advance automatically. 24 teams in total, with ties broken by points, then goal difference, then goals scored, then head-to-head record, then a fair play conduct score, and finally the FIFA World Ranking as a last resort. The remaining 8 spots come from an entirely new mechanism. All 12 third-place finishers are pooled into a single table and ranked against each other using points, goal difference, goals scored, conduct score, and ranking in that order. Since they're from different groups, head-to-head doesn't apply. Only the top 8 of those 12 advance. Finishing third is no longer an automatic exit, but it's still no guarantee. Here's where it gets genuinely complicated. Because nobody knows in advance which 8 of the 12 groups will produce a qualifying third-place team, FIFA had to pre-build a mapping table for every possible outcome, called Annex C. There are 495 possible combinations of which 8 groups qualify, and each one produces a different round of 32 draw, which also guarantees that 2 teams from the same group can't meet again until at least the quarterfinals. That round of 32 itself has never existed at a Men's World Cup before 2026. 16 matches were played across 9 days at the end of June and start of July. 8 of the 12 group winners were paired against a third-place qualifier, while the other 4 drew a tougher runner-up instead. Every match has to produce a winner, extra time, then penalties if needed. And one loss now ends a run a full round earlier than it would have in 2022. And the tournament spans 3 nations. The United States hosts the majority of venues and matches, including the final at MetLife Stadium in New York. Mexico hosts multiple cities, including the ceremonial opener in Mexico City. And Canada contributes host cities, including Toronto and Vancouver. That tri-nation model multiplies commercial reach, but it also multiplies travel distance, something we'll come back to. Now let's look at the case for this format. 5 specific ways it genuinely strengthened competitive fairness. First, collusion risk was closed off. By keeping full 4-team round-robin groups, every team plays every group opponent once, removing the side-out dynamic that made 3-team groups vulnerable to arranged results. A direct rejection of FIFA's own original proposal. Second, the best third mechanism reduced dead rubbers. This played out live. On the final match day, Algeria clinched the very last third-place qualifying spot with a stoppage-time 3-3 draw against Austria, and that result eliminated Iran on goal differential despite Iran entering the day in a strong position. Exactly the kind of late-game jeopardy this mechanism was designed to create. Third, access translated into real competitiveness. Cape Verde is a nation of roughly 525,000 people, ranked 67th in the world. As debutants, they held Spain to a scoreless draw, then drew Uruguay 2-2, then pushed defending champion Argentina all the way to extra time in the round of 32 before losing 2-1. Expanded slots were meant to broaden access. Instead, several debutants made that access competitively meaningful. Fourth, the talent gap has visibly narrowed. Australia beat a fancy Turkish side 2-0. Morocco eliminated co-host Canada 3-0 in the round of 16. Norway knocked out five-time champion Brazil 2-1. That's happening because players from once so-called minor footballing nations now regularly compete in Europe's top leagues, and the fear factor of facing elite opponents has genuinely diminished. Fifth, co-hosts got no favors. All three co-host nations are out by the quarterfinal stage. Canada lost to Morocco, Mexico fell to England, and the USA was eliminated by Belgium 4-1. Despite home crowds and travel advantages, none of them made it through, a real signal that the bracket wasn't tilted toward commercially convenient outcomes. But there's another side to this ledger. 7 ways this same expansion introduced new strains on fairness. First, more lopsided scorelines. Canada beat Qatar 6-0, Switzerland beat Bosnia and Herzegovina 4-1, and Tunisia lost 5-1, then 4-0, then 3-1 across 3 straight group games. Academic simulations of this exact format predicted this outcome, that non-competitive, stakeless matches would become more likely, especially for the strongest teams. Second, the qualifying math itself softened the stakes. In 2022, exactly half the field advanced from the group stage. In 2026, it's 2/3. A structurally lower bar for advancement softens the stakes of individual group games for a lot of mid-table sides, even while the best third race adds drama for the teams fighting over the last few slots specifically. Third, player workload and fatigue. A team reaching the final now plays 8 matches instead of 7, across 39 days instead of 29. FIFPro, the Global Players Union, has called the resulting calendar unsustainable. Elite players are already playing 50 to 60 club matches a season before this extra round gets layered on top, raising real injury risk. Fourth, casualties among traditionally strong sides. South Korea won its opener, then faded and exited on a tight tiebreaker. Tunisia fired its manager after just match day 1, the first time that's happened at a World Cup in nearly 100 years. Uruguay went out with only 2 points, missing the third-place table entirely, and Iran was eliminated purely on goal differential despite being well-positioned entering the final round. Fifth, structural complexity introduces luck. That Annex C mechanism cuts both ways. The same system that protects fairness in qualification also means opponent difficulty in the round of 32 is partly a function of which weak groups happen to produce a third-place qualifier, something the old 32-team format never had to deal with. Sixth, financial imbalance undercuts the access argument. Africa's guaranteed slots grew from 5 to 9, a real gain on paper, but regional federations, especially in East Africa, remain heavily dependent on FIFA's development funds just to sustain grassroots programs. If most of the new broadcast revenue ends up captured by top European clubs and federations, this expansion could widen football's global inequality gap rather than close it. And seventh, environmental and logistical strain. An independent study from June 2026 estimated this tournament's carbon footprint at 7.8 million metric tons of CO2, more than double the official 2022 Qatar total, with 87.8% of that coming from spectator and team transit alone. So why did FIFA actually do this? The financial case is central to understanding the decision. FIFA's projected total revenue from this World Cup is roughly $11 billion, with about $3.9 billion expected from broadcasting rights alone, up around 30% over 2022, and roughly 40% more total tournament revenue than the last cycle. It comes down to a simple chain. 64 matches became 104, a 62.5% jump in broadcast inventory, and every added match is another commercial asset. Sponsorship grew too, up roughly 37% to about $2.4 billion. More host cities means more local ticket, tourism, and hospitality revenue. And FIFA's own leaked internal projections pointed to roughly $1 billion in additional broadcast revenue and 300 to 500 million in new sponsorship. Ticket pricing has climbed sharply alongside all of this. Comparable seats now run roughly $560, nearly 10 times higher than prior comparable pricing tiers. There is a supporter entry tier around $60, but it only makes up about 10% of each nation's ticket allocation. And on the resale market, some seats have reportedly been listed above $11,000, fueling real accusations of elitism and price gouging. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has defended all of this by pointing to the organization's nonprofit status, arguing that revenue generated through the World Cup gets reinvested across FIFA's 211 member associations. Whether that reinvestment actually reaches smaller federations proportionally to the new revenue remains a disputed question. Zooming out to the full four-year cycle, FIFA generated roughly $7.6 billion in the 2019 to 2022 cycle, driven largely by Qatar itself. Projections for the 2023 to 2026 cycle run between 11 and 13 billion. Historically, a single World Cup tournament has generated the overwhelming majority of FIFA's total revenue for an entire four-year cycle, which explains why the incentive to grow this specific event is so strong. Money explains a lot of this decision, but not all of it. Africa's guaranteed slots grew from 5 to 9, Asia's went from 4.5 to 8, Europe gained just 3 additional slots despite fielding the world's strongest leagues, South America picked up roughly 1 to 2, and Oceania received its first ever guaranteed direct spot, widely read as a deliberate political trade, shifting influence toward the developing football world to build broader support within FIFA. Politics showed up more directly too. Iran's players were ultimately granted visas to enter the United States, but a substantial portion of their coaching, managerial, and support staff were reportedly denied entry permits, and the team was reportedly only permitted into the country on match days. This followed a pattern. Iran's federation had already boycotted the December 2025 World Cup draw after its own president was denied a visa, and officials called the treatment discriminatory. Then there was the Balogun incident. After American striker Folarin Balogun received a red card against Bosnia and Herzegovina, FIFA overturned his automatic suspension following a phone call from President Trump directly to FIFA President Infantino, and UEFA said the move crossed a red line. Belgium then beat the USA 4-1 in the round of 16, a result many neutral observers read as a kind of on-field rebuke. Separately, following U.S. statements on Greenland back in January 2026, political and sporting figures in the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands discussed a potential boycott of this tournament. It never became formal action, but it's part of a broader pattern, given that Infantino had presented a FIFA Peace Prize to President Trump the previous December, and the shadow of the 2015 FIFA-Gate scandal still looms over questions of FIFA's transparency and independence. Enough theory. Let's look at what's actually happened on the pitch. Cape Verde's run is the headline story. Draws with Spain and Uruguay, then a near-miracle extra-time exit against Argentina, becoming the smallest nation ever to reach a World Cup knockout round. Australia beat a fancied Turkey side 2-0, and both Curaçao and DR Congo delivered results well beyond expectations. Not every story was uplifting, though. South Korea won its opener, then faded and exited on a tiebreaker. Tunisia fired its manager after just one match day, then lost 3 straight. Uruguay went out with only 2 points, and Iran was eliminated on goal differential despite a strong group position. And notably, all 3 co-hosts are out. Canada was eliminated by Morocco 3-0, Mexico fell to England 3-2, and the USA lost to Belgium 4-1. Despite home crowds, familiar conditions, and in the American case, a controversial disciplinary intervention. Here's how the round of 16 shook out to set the quarterfinals. Argentina survived Egypt 3-2, Belgium ended the American co-hosts run 4-1, Spain edged Portugal 1-0. England eliminated a second co-host in Mexico 3-2. Norway delivered one of the tournament's biggest shocks by beating Brazil 2-1. Morocco dismantled the third co-host Canada 3-0. France beat Paraguay 1-0. And Switzerland outlasted Colombia on penalties after a scoreless draw. And the third-place race lived up to its billing right to the end. The standings shifted daily. Ecuador was the first team to clinch a spot as a third-place qualifier. Uruguay was the first to be officially eliminated. And the very last spot came down to Algeria's 3-3 draw with Austria, which simultaneously clinched Algeria's place and knocked Iran out on goal differential. Taken together, the results cut in both directions at once. This has been called one of the most chaotic group stages in World Cup history. Not the duller one critics predicted, but genuine mismatches did happen too, and not a single co-host reached the quarterfinals. So let's bring all of this together and answer the actual question. Did the format make the tournament more balanced or less? On the improved side, competitive balance, whether any team can plausibly beat any other, genuinely got better. Collusion risk was closed off, and the best third mechanism kept far more matches meaningful. On the strained side, structural balance got messier through Annex C's 495 combinations, physical and resource balance arguably worsened, and the two-thirds qualification rate softened stakes for a lot of group games. It helps to separate this into three distinct ideas. Competitive balance improved, and the results back that up. Structural balance, whether the bracket is predictable and legible, weakened because opponent difficulty now depends partly on a 495-way lottery, and physical and resource balance, whether the tournament's cost is fairly shared among players and federations, also weakened given the extra match, the extra travel, and the uneven funding flows. A few questions remain open as this plays out. Will FIFA push even further to 64 teams for 2030? UEFA President Alexander Cheferin has already called that idea a bad one. Does the new revenue actually reach smaller federations in proportion to their expanded role? And can player workload keep scaling with tournament size before something breaks? FIFPro's warnings will only get louder if this format grows again. In the end, the 48-team format didn't simply make the World Cup more or less balanced, it fragmented the question. On-field competitiveness rose. Bracket predictability and physical fairness fell. Which of those matters more is still being actively debated as this tournament plays out, and that debate will shape whatever FIFA decides to do next.